Is your company currently hiring? Do you know the two biggest problems when using third-party recruiting services? It's price and it's transparency. Stay tuned for the following interview, where we talk about my company Vested, how we're revolutionizing the recruiting industry, lowering costs, and providing more transparency to our customers.
Andy, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mike.
Yeah,
Very
and
excited.
just to get started, can you give me your background in the recruiting industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in recruiting and talent acquisition for more than a decade. I've worked with thousands of companies, from small businesses all the way up to Fortune 50 companies, a variety of industries all over the country. And really my role has been to understand what their recruiting processes are or have been, find ways to optimize it, and then make recommendations, things like branding, technology, software, data, and even services.
So what gave you the idea to start Vested?
When I was at LinkedIn recently, I realized that there were a lot of companies that had access to a lot of different tools and resources, but were really limited on bandwidth. They didn't have the time to actually go out, do a lot of the sourcing themselves. And unfortunately, when you stop sourcing for candidates, the candidate quality goes down quite a bit. So I just felt like there was an opportunity to meet somewhere in the middle, right? A lot of companies don't want to go and use services because they're expensive. But they do need someone to help them in times of low bandwidth. So what we decided to do was build a technology platform that also has a services component. So we can go out and identify talent very easily, very cost effectively, and deliver that talent pre-screened to our customers.
And what would you say, was it a cost basis, or is it a better service? Is it streamlined? I mean, where's your innovation in this?
Well, I would tell you first and foremost is going to be a cost. So we did a lot of market research ahead of time before we decided to dive into this hybrid services technology model. Okay. A lot of companies don't want to use third parties because they're very expensive. And I just look at that model in that industry. A lot of these companies, like Adecco, Robert Half, and so forth, they have offices all over the world, really. Sure. Brick and mortar stuff is expensive. I don't know that we necessarily need that in today's world. The internet allows things to be much more streamlined and centralized. And in a lot of the questions we would ask to our potential customers, we would say, hey, if recruiting costs or service costs were actually half as much, would you use them more often? And the answer was a resounding yes. So really what we thought about doing was taking a fresh look at how we can deliver this service to our customers. We're a software company at our heart. And so efficiencies and doing things through technology is really what differentiates us as a business and how we're able to keep the costs low for our customers.
And how does the traditional recruiting industry work?
Yeah, it's a good question. The industry's been around for about 50 years. The traditional third party, I'll pay 25 to 30% placement fees on the candidates that you find for me. It really hasn't kept pace with the larger talent acquisition industry, though. So if I were to give you just a really quick overview, when I started a decade ago, everything was in the newspapers, and it had been that way for hundreds of years.
Sure.
Just the last 10 years, we've seen a major shift, the rise and some would say fall of job boards, aggregators like Indeed, social media like Instagram and LinkedIn, and then there's been an entire separate industry of software that's been born. HCMs, applicant tracking systems like Taleo and Workday. The one thing that really hasn't changed, though, is the traditional third-party model. Sure. They really haven't kept pace, and I think Vested is in a really interesting place to be able to revolutionize that.
All right, I want to touch on transparency. So if I'm a business, I can see behind the scenes. How have there been problems with recruiters in the past, and where do you see the friction in the traditional model that you're going to solve?
Yeah, so when we spoke earlier, I mentioned that I had been working with thousands of companies over the past decade plus. A lot of times when I would talk about their usage of third parties, they were disgruntled with a few things. They were obviously just upset about the cost. It's very expensive. 25 to 30% is very expensive. Definitely. But they also didn't really know what was happening. Were these companies still working on their role? Sometimes they hadn't seen candidates in 3 or 4 weeks. They weren't sure where things were progressing, if they were progressing. So with Vested, we're giving each one of our customers access to their own dashboard so that they can see everything that's happening behind the scenes. When we started the search, if we've stopped the search, how many candidates are in their talent pool, how many of them have been contacted, what the response rates look like, how your branded job is performing, a variety of different things really to help you and your hiring managers or your team identify how close we are to landing a candidate And frankly, so that you know that we're doing the things that we should be doing and not saying we're relying on some quote unquote secret sauce or relationships to try and get these roles filled for you.
Okay, and we were talking, 30%, 25, 30% of the first year's salary. What are your fees, and how does your service kind of, do you supply those same, services and features that these third-party recruiters are doing?
Yeah, same services. The delivery is a little bit different, and the pricing is a little bit different. So I'll get into that. I would start by saying Vested Technology is a software company at heart. So we know that software can do things much more efficiently than a person can in a lot of situations. So we did a deep dive. We studied the traditional third-party recruiting model and went through that process ourselves. Recorded everything, identified what inefficiencies were there, and then built technology around it to make those processes more automated and more efficient, and in turn can pass those savings along to our customers.
Gotcha. If you could you walk me through a process? So I'm a business, I'm looking to hire new candidates, I have your software. Now, how does it work?
Yeah, so actually I would say would start as a service side. So the software we have internally is proprietary. You would contact me and say, hey, I'm looking to fill XYZ role. Let's say it's a sales director at a company in New York. We would have a good conversation about the types of roles, the company culture, exactly what it is that you're looking for. And then we build some branding around your company and around your job. So we leverage branded job descriptions to share with the candidates to get people interested in your business and your opportunity. We also do a variety of sourcing. The tools that we use are across the board, which we can get into a little bit later. And then we start doing some cold outreach to get candidates interested in your company. Then we present everything into a dashboard. So we have full transparency into what we're doing for your specific role, something that you can log into and view in real time. And in this dashboard, it shares what the size of your talent pool is, how many of them have been contacted, what the response rate looks like, how many of them have made it through an interview round with us, how many of them are being presented to you. And then we can take that information and benchmark it against other companies in your industry and in your space to literally help you understand how your talent brand or how your recruiting message resonates with candidates versus your peers.
What type of business would ideally want to use your service?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, really, it's across the board. So we work with companies that have internal recruiting teams, talent acquisition leaders and directors, for example, who ultimately just need more bandwidth at certain times, right? They have a new project or a new initiative that comes down. They need to hire a lot of people quickly. They don't have the team internally to be able to support all of that. They can leverage our services just at an as-needed basis and an a la carte basis. So we work with those types of businesses. We also work with small to medium-sized businesses, even startups that need talent in a cost-effective way and don't have internal recruiting teams. We'll become that team for them.
Perfect. And could you go a little bit on where you see Invested going in the future? All right, Andy, great interview. I just have one last question.
Of course.
So I'm a business and I'm growing and I'm looking to hire some new employees to fill some new positions. And I spoke to a job recruiter. They explained what they're going to do for me. Now you just called me. Why should I go with you?
Really, I think there's a variety of differentiators between Vested and a traditional third-party model. I would start by saying cost is probably going to be first and foremost. Because we're a technology and a software company first, we can significantly reduce the costs. With the traditional third-party recruiting firm, you're going to be paying 20, 25, 30%, maybe even more. With Vested, we can get anywhere between 5 to 15% depending on the service that you need. And that leads me to the second point. You might not need a full service recruiter, you might just need help sourcing, or you might just need help screening candidates or interviewing them. With Vested, we have an a la carte approach. You can pick and choose the option that's best for you. The third part is going to be transparency. So we want to provide you full transparency to everything that's going on behind the scenes, just so that you know that we're working hard on your role. You can get a better gauge of how close we are to landing a candidate and that you can end up hiring. And then I think the fourth piece is going to be just your experience, as well as the candidate experience. But because we have the tools, technologies, and we're a software company first, we're really keen on making sure that the process that both our candidates as well as our customers go through is top notch.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time, Andy. I thought it was a very informative interview and wish you best of luck with Vested.
Hi, this is Andy. I hope you enjoyed watching the interview about my company, Vested. Right now we're offering a promotion, 10 free sourced candidates to help you fill that next important job.